Okay, final project for Intro to Theater Honors. You are going to create a production from scratch. You are the mastermind. You are creating the play, the reason for the play, the design, and the marketing. Think of me as a producer. The purpose of this project is to convince me to invest in your play so you can bring it to life. Since it's the final paper for the course, obviously you should use vocabulary and concepts from class often and correctly. There is no word requirement or any of that kind of thing, but we're using concepts from class. This project should also reflect what is personally important to you as an artist, a creator, and a member of society. This project is the way that I assess the outcome for the theater program of solving problems, creating solutions, and risking failure. So that's why I'm not going to give you an example of what this should look like. You are solving the problem. And the problem is, how do you convince somebody to think your ideas are important enough to put money behind them? There is a rubric that I use to grade, so please look at that before you get started. So bear in mind that the purpose of the project is simply not to make money, although you are trying to convince somebody to invest in it, but to utilize the unique factors of the theater to say something important about the world. However, having said that, if nobody sees it, there's no point in doing it. So you should bear that in mind. There are different parts of this assignment. It can be possibly a little confusing, but let's make sense out of it. So you're going to create an outline for a full-length play. Now, a full-length play really is anything over an hour. Does not have to have an intermission. It's these days playwrights like to write shorter plays that don't have intermissions. But if you want an intermission, if you want a 5-act play, that's fine too. But don't let the term full length mean that, oh, it has to be 2 hours or what have you. It's frequently theater's not that long these days. So you're going to create an outline based on the script analysis stuff we know. Define the stasis in the given circumstances. Now, these are just going to be a list. This is obviously not writing up an essay describing this. You're putting the stuff in a list. Like, for given circumstances, give me 5 facts about this play that are true before the curtain goes up, before lights up. What's the inciting incident? What is the event that we see happening on stage? Therefore, it's part of the plot, not just the story. This event that gets everything going. Give me 2 complications that happen along the way between the inciting incident and the point of no return. Then tell me what's the point of no return and what's the climax, and then what's the new stasis. You can list a couple facts that they're not super important. I just want to know that you know that things have changed. How is the world different after going through what these characters went through? You're going to write 2 pages of dialogue. And there are specific requirements. Which 2 pages is up to you. The first 2 pages are the first quarter of a play is the most difficult to write because you're having to sneak in exposition and do it in a motivated way. So I would suggest probably not the first 2 pages. There's probably a moment in the play that you feel like is really important, maybe the climax or maybe something that the idea behind the play that sort of inspired you. Maybe you can express that in a couple pages. It does not have to have a clear beginning and a middle and an end. Think of this as an exercise in writing dialogue, not in creating a scene. 2 pages is probably only going to be about 2 minutes on stage. So it's probably not going to have this beautiful shape to it. If it does, you might need to reevaluate that because it's probably more cinematic than it is theatrical. Movies tend to be shorter and have a clear boom, 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 for each shot or for each moment in the movie. The other thing that's really important about this is that it is continuous. I skipped over. There should only be 2 actors, 2 characters in this play. Writing a scene with more than 2 characters is extremely difficult. Don't take that on. The play should take place in one location and should be continuous. No jumps in time, and it should be 2 pages of real time. We're adhering it to the unity of place and action. We're not jumping forward. It's what I figured, and before I would be very specific about, no skips in time, make it sure it's real time. I would get, even with just in 2 pages, I would get these mini scenes that were actually much more cinematic than they were theatrical. So 2 pages, 2 people talking to each other, not skipping forward or backwards in time. Think of it as an exercise in writing dialogues. And in that exercise of writing the dialogue, saying what you think and thinking what you say is the hallmark of a bad play. People don't talk that way. We talk with subtext. Do not write 2 pages in which your characters are describing how they feel to each other. We don't do that in real life. We expect people to understand how we feel. We expect people to understand our subtext. Characters and people in real life hardly ever say what they think and think what they say. And it should be formatted like the example below, which we'll look at really briefly, but it's here in this written description for you to look at. So I want you to use vocabulary and concepts from the course, but I'm not requiring a specific use of vocabulary words. So they're going to be, this number 3, we're describing 1 paragraph that you're going to write here. No more than 500 words, so it needs to be succinct. And you need to address each of the points below. Remember, producers don't have a lot of time. So it's an exercise in catching our attention and giving us juicy info. So within this one first sort of relevance paragraph, why is the play personally, socially, and artistically relevant? Why do we need to do this play now? What type of theater company will produce this play, and who is your target audience? What playwrights from class influenced the writing of this play? Playwrights that we read in class, or playwrights that we've talked about, maybe in the history discussions, history videos. What other influences from the class have led you to come up with your ideas? And then you're going to come up with, for each of the design elements, you're going to come up with 1 paragraph each, for a total of 3 more paragraphs. So briefly describe the set, the lighting, and the costume in 1 paragraph each. And most importantly, why do you want those choices? I would spend more time on the why than the what, because that's obviously more important. Now, obviously, these choices should be informed by the stuff you've learned about design from the class. And 1 last final paragraph. Describe your marketing campaign. Simply saying, oh, we'll use social media is not good enough. You need to come up with some creative ideas, ways to solve the problem. The main problem that theater makers have these days is, how do you get people to come to see your show? So how are you going to do that? What about the show are you going to emphasize in the marketing? Who are you going to market to? How are you going to market to those people? Are you going to compare it to other plays? Are you going to, how are you going to really hook people and make people want to come see this show? You might, discuss ticket prices or any of that kind of stuff. Anything that you think is relevant. How are you going to get people to come see this show? Do not underestimate this. This is the biggest problem that theater makers have, and it is the most clear way that you can indicate that you are solving problems. You are not afraid to fail. You are just jumping in both feet forward and taking on this idea. So just for clarification, because in case the write-up was not horribly clear, you're going to submit an outline of the entire play, stasis, inciting incident, complications, point of no return, climax, and new stasis. You're going to create 2 pages of dialogue, 1 paragraph about the relevance, 1 paragraph about set, 1 paragraph about lighting, 1 paragraph about costumes, and 1 paragraph about marketing. Now, since this project is due finals week, there's no time really to do a big complicated late deduction. If you get it in on time, that means you're a rock star. If you get it in between the due date and the drop dead date and time, whenever that is, then there will be a 10-point deduction. There's no 20-point anything, because we don't have a lot of time left. So I won't take time to look at it now, but look at this. This is how the dialogue is formatted. So format your dialogue this way, spacing like this. This is how I decided to come up with 2 pages, because if you're formatted that way, I feel like that's an acceptable amount of work for me to ask from you to create. If you single space at all, you're going to ask yourself for more work. Again, don't worry about a clear beginning and a middle and an end. Start in the middle of a scene. And I'll probably be more interested. Most of the time, most of the feedback I give to young playwrights is you need to cut. So just give me 2 awesome pages and let's see how it goes. So that's it. Look at the rubric before you get going. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. It's important in submission that you attach it. You don't cut and paste and send me a link to open. As I probably said before, 99.9% of the times I can't open the links that students submit. And especially with this one, there's not a lot of turnaround time for me to try to open it and for you to check your email, if you're not doing it twice a day, which you should be doing, for me to get in touch with you and say, oh, I can't open this, resubmit in another way. So please attach it. Cutting and pasting into the text box is going to be super tricky, especially with the format of the dialogue. So that's it. I look forward to reading your awesome ideas and your amazing dialogue and your campaigns and your PR campaigns. So let me know if you have any questions.